She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
That was Donald Trump talking about his critic Liz Cheney, appearing to suggest she be put before a firing squad. Is that a death threat?
Well, the first thing I would say, Bram, is it is, just outrageous that Donald Trump would come to Arizona and make statements like that that are clearly, at least appear to be threatening and harassing and intimidating. And I'll be clear with you, I have already asked my criminal division chiefs to start looking at that statement, analyzing it, for whether it qualifies as a death threat under Arizona's laws. So I'm not prepared now to say whether it was or it wasn't, but it is not helpful as we prepare for our election and as we try to make sure that we keep the peace at our polling places and in our state, and as I know we will, have once again a free and fair and safe election.
His supporters, Donald Trump's supporters, would say, come on, that's political speech, free speech.
Now,
you think it may have crossed a line?
I mean, that's the question, whether it did cross a line. And the fact, though, that he would come to Arizona and make a statement like that against Liz Cheney, who has been speaking out against him and exercising her free speech, I think is just not helpful. It's deeply troubling, and it is the kind of thing that riles people up and that makes our situation in Arizona and other states more dangerous.
That was Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays announcing that Donald Trump's comments aimed at Liz Cheney, claiming that Cheney should face 9 barrels shooting at her during an interview with Tucker Carlson, are now under investigation in the state. It's worth noting that in Arizona, state law says that threatening to cause physical injuries to someone can be considered a Class 1 misdemeanor or a Class 3 felony. Although, as we've learned, Trump isn't one to allow his prosecutions to get in the way of his interminable desire to seize power by any means necessary. I should also note that this is the same guy who spent, 3 days now feigning outrage at some random comment said by Joe Biden, which apparently was too uncivilized for Donald Trump's taste, all the while Trump is calling for his opponents to be executed. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And in case you thought that Trump would, maybe walk back, calling for his political opponent's execution, not at all. Here he is defending his own comments.
Oh, yeah, sure. She's a war hawk. She kills people. She wanted even in my administration, she was pushing that we go to war with everybody. And I said, if you ever gave her a rifle to do the fighting, if you ever do that, she wouldn't be doing too well, I will tell you right now. But she's a war hawk. She wants to go kill people unnecessarily. And if she had to do it herself and she had to face the consequences of battle, she wouldn't be doing it. So it's easy for her to talk, but she wouldn't be doing it. She's actually a disgrace.
That his comments about Liz Cheney were justifiable because she's a war hawk. In other words, Trump is merely referencing such recent events as, let me check my notes here, the Iraq War to justify him calling for the execution of Kamala Harris's campaign surrogate. Yep, totally checks out. And of course, when Trump says jump, his minions say how high. Here's Kellyanne Conway stuttering her way through a similar justification.
Many people in this country have a hard time understanding why so many people died in the Iraq War, given the fact that well, I'm just going to say this. Given the fact that people in this country are very divided on those times, I won't express my own opinion on it except to say that I was in the White House with the Commander-in-Chief when he had a very hard time every month calling those soldiers' parents and signing those letters like, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Jones, your son died a hero."
And here's Republican Senator Bill Hagerty getting, frankly, humiliated on air.
We're going to blow up yet another one of these stories into some sort of pre-election day hoax. I think we should move on.
I don't know how you define hoax. This is nothing a hoax. We ran his clip, and there are people who are legitimately offended by that. And
it's a distortion, Jake. This is a distortion.
I ran the entire quote, Senator. We ran the entire thing.
This is a distortion about violence, and the violence he's talking about is the violence that's perpetrated on our men and women in service, and the decisions that are made by people like Liz Cheney to send them into the throes.
Liz Cheney was an assistant secretary of state. When did she send anyone into battle?
I think President Trump is making a broad statement and using her as an example of the war hawks in Washington that make these decisions from the comfort of an office, perhaps not taking into account the fact that there are very serious consequences. Those consequences are realized by those people that are in the foxhole, those people that are actually in combat situations. That's what he was illustrating, nothing more.
So you think that anyone that takes issue with him invoking, let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her when the gun's untrained on her face, you think anyone that takes issue with that is either perpetrating or falling victim to a hoax? There's no one that can legitimately say
what I'm
that's
saying, Jake, is this
violent
is a distortion.
imagery at a time. What's a distortion? I read that we played the whole
clip.
clip.
This is a distortion of what's this is a distortion of what President Trump meant, and you know it. President Trump wasn't calling for any type of violence on Liz Cheney.
I didn't say he was.
What he was talking about was her to consider the violence that anybody that we put into that circumstance might face.
And so perhaps this moment could be instructive for the next time Trump and Republicans do their usual pearl-clutching routine when Joe Biden or some other Democrat says something mean. Maybe, just maybe, they're not actually concerned about people making mean comments, they're just looking for any excuse to do their faux outrage, knowing full well that the media will gladly fall in line and make it a national news story. And I know this is the most tired game in America, but can you imagine what these same people would say if Kamala Harris said that Donald Trump should face 9 barrels shooting at him? I mean, honestly, do you think we would ever hear the end of it? Do you think Fox would ever stop its coverage? The GOP would petition to add more hours to the day so that they can spend even more time screeching about it. And yet when Trump does it, well, Trump will be Trump, right? Locker room talk, right? He's got brash style, but what really matters is his policy, right? The double standard would be shocking if it wasn't so fucking predictable. Granted, while Trump of course gets a free pass from the Republicans who have taken up collective residence inside of his colon, there are plenty of people, even on the right, for whom this was enough reason to speak out. Here, for example, is conservative jurist Judge Ludig.
What Donald Trump said about Liz Cheney last night, his allies in the past have explained it away and likely will explain it away as he doesn't really mean what he's saying. What do you see as the danger when you hear him talk about his enemies like this?
Kate, those despicable words spoken by the Republican nominee for the presidency, who Americans will either elect or reject as the next president of the United States of America in just 5 days, were reprehensible. They were unprecedented. I cannot tell you how many emails and texts I received this morning that just said, "Oh my God." And the only reply to those messages I could think of, Kate, was, "Yes, oh my God." Every citizen of the country, especially Republicans, has an obligation to themselves and to America to watch the video from last night, as I did before coming on this morning, and ponder those un-American words by Donald Trump before they cast their votes on Tuesday. The nation is now on notice, if it was not already. If Americans return Donald Trump to the White House after those comments about our fellow American Liz Cheney, statements that Donald Trump would make about any one of his countless other enemies from within, those who voted for him will get what they deserve. Apropos of his reprehensible words last night, of course, 3 nights ago, Vice President Harris spoke the most powerful words that anyone running against Donald Trump could ever speak. She said, "I will give those who disagree with me a seat at the table." Those, Kate, are the words of a president of the United States. Those are the words that Americans, especially Republicans and independents, need to hear and desperately want to hear from their next president.
And look, I know that we can get lost in the minutia of the legal challenges and the vote counts and the court cases, but taking a step back, there's one thing that has been especially bothersome for me. So very briefly, here's what one reporter said after his own discussion with Attorney General Mays.
If you're here right now, you begin to understand how this place is ready for a high security event on Tuesday, an election. Our sheriff's office is talking about a no tolerance policy for protests. Chris Mays is activating all her agents. every law enforcement agency in the state is involved with protecting the vote, protecting voters. So that's, Chris Mays brought that into the conversation, that for Donald Trump to make these kinds of remarks at this time, such a really fraught and tense moment here in Maricopa County, is just bad.
That our elections are a, quote, high security event. I'm sorry, but look at what's happened to this country as the result of Trump's lies. We're supposed to be this beacon of democracy for the world, and yet our elections are high security events where violence isn't just existent, but expected? The extent to which this man has fundamentally altered the fabric of our country, all in service of his relentless pursuit of power, and egged on by a political party of cowards who are collectively too afraid to stand up to him, is absolutely fucking unforgivable. I don't know if we'll ever be back to normal in my lifetime. I don't know if we'll ever see nonviolent elections again in my lifetime. I don't know if we'll ever see the losers of the election accept the results again in my lifetime. But one thing is absolutely for sure. If we will, it's only going to be because Trump loses on Tuesday. So, political party aside, if you are tired of the violence, of the chaos, of the danger, of the lies, then make sure to join the party under whose tent falls everyone from AOC to Liz Cheney, all of whom can agree that we need to turn the page on this horrific chapter and put our democracy above the whims of a petty tyrant. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.